last half-century, China has been transformed by energy. China fueled its rapid industrialization with coal, oil, and natural gas, and more recently, with renewable energy sources. This energy-driven transformation of China has affected millions of people. Chinese people have benefited from technology, consumer products, and economic growth, but they have also been harmed by side effects such as pollution.
This video explores the effects of China's energy industry on its people by analyzing 2 interviews with Chinese engineering students at Zhejiang University in Hangzhou. One student, Yaming, is a junior in aircraft design. The other, Yalin, is a graduate student in mechanical engineering. These 2 students shared their knowledge and opinions about energy, as well as their projections for the future of energy in China.
One major theme in the interviews was that industrialization and energy consumption has increased the quality of life in China. As Yalin said, industrialization helps the economy grow and improves the lives of people. A plentiful energy supply has enabled Chinese manufacturers to produce more goods and more technologically advanced goods. Yaming mentioned cell phones as an example. Cell phones have become cheaper and more functional. More people can buy luxury goods such as cell phones because the energy and manufacturing industries have created many jobs and have strengthened the economy. Entire villages have been transformed into small industrial cities. One example is Yaming's hometown, Fuyang.
Take Fuyang as an example. Fuyang used to be a location like a small village, some small villages, and it's not very rich. But in recent years, it has many paper production companies, and I think this is kind of industrialization. And now we call many people in Fuyang 大老板, which means boss. They are very rich, yes. And comparing to some other parts of Hangzhou, they are the richer one. Yeah, I think.
The effect of industrialization on Fuyang reflects Tuan's writings about sense of place. Sense of place is a theoretical concept of humanistic geography which states that the identity of a place includes both its physical composition and the intangible experiences of people. Therefore, people's thoughts about a location influence that location's identity and sense of place. The sense of place in Fuyang changed drastically when it transformed from a small village into a wealthy industrial center. Fuyang is now identified as a place where 大老板, rich bosses, live and prosper.
Despite the benefits of energy consumption, there are also drawbacks. One major negative consequence of the energy industry is pollution. According to Yalin, the problem of limited resources and environmental damage is also an urgent need to be solved. Fossil fuel consumption depletes resources and causes pollution, including air pollution. Air pollution is an especially significant problem in China. It is very common to see Chinese city dwellers wearing face masks to protect themselves from air pollution. In Beijing, the air is so polluted that the city and its surrounding areas have hazy brown skies. Let us return to the example of Fuyang. According to Yaming, the paper production factories in Fuyang are required to follow regulations that reduce emissions and air pollution. However, the companies do not follow these regulations and air pollution continues. Yaming speculates that companies in Hangzhou behave similarly, even though information about companies' deviations from environmental regulations is not readily available in China. The information may be covered up to quell worries about pollution.
And indeed, the public does worry about pollution. People in the industrialized areas of eastern China have ever-increasing living standards and do not tolerate high levels of air pollution. As Zheng explained in The Evolving Geography of China's Industrial Production, energy firms and manufacturing firms are moving to Western China to utilize cheap land, cheap labor, and lenient regulations. Yaming agreed that this trend will reduce pollution in the East, but transportation of energy and products must be improved for this to work. This relates to Pasqualetti's ideas about the spatial dimensions of energy. The location of energy resources, energy production, and energy consumption influence how a nation manages its energy industry, and one major spatial issue is energy transportation from Western to Eastern China.
Another way to reduce pollution is to use clean energy sources. Both students agree that expanding the renewable energy industry is essential. According to Yaling, it is very important to be an efficient, environmentally friendly, and renewable energy source, not only for a country, a region, but also for personal life and work.
Nevertheless, the implementation of renewable energy technology is difficult. Yaming mentioned that an energy source must be suitable for the region where it is located. Yaming also emphasized that the local population must approve of the energy industries in a region. One energy industry that lacks public support is nuclear energy. She quickly dismissed it as a possible energy source because it is unsafe.
I think probably many years later we want be more so dependent on the renewable energy we are using now. We might use more clean and safe energy like electricity, and I think other energy like the nuclear power. I think there are still many people who refuse to use it. I think to put energy into use, of course, you need the technology and it needs to suit the region's characteristic. However, you also have to convince the public to accept it. Yeah.
Yalin also pointed out the danger of nuclear accidents and used Chernobyl as an example of this risk. It was interesting to observe that both students were certain that the hazards of nuclear energy outweigh its benefits, and it would be meaningful to further explore if most Chinese people share this opinion.
One prevalent method of using cleaner energy in China is efficient transportation. When asked about energy conservation in Hangzhou, both students quickly pointed out the electric buses and bikes in the city. Yaming owns an electric bike and uses it to travel around campus. To encourage people to use more energy-efficient vehicles, every street has side lanes for mopeds and bicycles. Nevertheless, the system still needs improvement. For example, Yaming does not have an electric bike charging station at her dorm, which makes owning an electric bike less convenient. The students also talked about energy efficiency in buildings. Yalin said, in 2018, Hangzhou government implemented the Hangzhou Green Building Special Plan. So the planning and standard of green building will be strictly implemented in building design in the future, which construction to achieve energy saving. In addition, classroom buildings at Zhejiang University use smart lighting systems.
And also, there's also one project studied by another student. As you can see, when you walk into every classroom, maybe Yichang is not so obvious, but when you are in Zhejiang campus, whenever you enter into a classroom, the lights are not always open unless you have went to a certain spot. It has sensors to test whether there's people there, and if there's people, it's light up. Yeah.
Students have learned the importance of energy conservation from their school textbooks. The government has ensured that future generations prioritize clean energy. Students at Zhejiang University have undertaken projects to improve energy efficiency on campus. One example is elevator signs, which remind students to use the elevator responsibly and conserve energy. Yaming also said that she encouraged her parents to stop habits that wasted water in their home.
When asked how the energy industry might impact her future career, Yaming said that advances in energy technology would greatly aid her career in aircraft design.
If there are more efficient, clean energy and energy technology, we can save our labor in it, and we can shift our concentration to designing the other parts, like the aerodynamic efficiency. I think that's also very important. And as one of my teacher once have mentioned that the energy efficiency of aero engine has greatly limited our advancement in aircraft design. Yeah.
But what is that future of energy in China? What advancements will be made? Yaming emphasizes the importance of research in renewable energy. Yellen predicted that China will gradually transition to more renewable energy sources. The issues explored by Yaming and Yellen in these interviews parallel the top 4 most critical factors affecting the renewable energy sector in China. These top 4 critical factors were determined in a study by authors Zhen Yu Zhao and Yu Long Chen. The factors are energy transfer, energy consumption, research and development, and pollution. These factors encompass the major themes covered in the interviews with Yaming and Yalin, especially relating to renewable energy.
Despite their predictions about the future of renewable energy in China, both students said that China will still heavily rely on coal and oil. According to Yalin, fossil fuels will continue to be used because they are cheap and efficient. The coal business is thriving, and China depends on this resource.
I think coal, because maybe you don't know. There are many. There's one phrase like 山西煤老板, which means many people benefit from selling coals in Shanxi to gain great fortune. I think this is a great business, and the energy consumption, I think it's because our nation is still very dependent on the coal consumption. So that's why that's partly why we develop our term 山西煤老板. Yeah.
We believe that the results of these 2 interviews have helped us to learn much about how Chinese engineering students view the energy industry. Nevertheless, our findings are incomplete. Due to time constraints during our study abroad program, we were only able to interview 2 students, one in mechanical engineering and one in aircraft design. Ideally, we would like to interview students from other engineering disciplines and even other universities. We interviewed Yaming in person on Zhejiang University's campus. This interview method was advantageous because it was personal, informal, and spontaneous. We were able to immediately ask follow-up questions about what Yaming said. Moreover, Yaming was already friends with me, and she was more comfortable to speak than if she was not familiar with us. However, Yaming may have withheld some of her opinions because she was being filmed. She also knew the main questions ahead of time, so she might have tried to craft her answers. We interviewed Yalin over WeChat. We sent her the questions, and she sent us back a document with her answers. This interview method is more convenient for the interviewee, and it enabled us to hear from a student who was otherwise too busy and too afraid of the camera to agree to an in-person interview. Unfortunately, this method did not allow us to have a true conversation. The results of this interview were shorter and less in-depth.
If this research project were continued, it would be beneficial to use both in-person and over-text interview methods with a large, diverse group of students. One way to obtain more information about the students' opinions would be to ask for their thoughts about specific current events in China related to energy. We would like to use this strategy in future interviews.
Through this research project, we learned about energy through the eyes of Chinese engineering students. These two students were very aware of the importance of energy and spoke extensively about how energy has impacted and will impact many aspects of their lives. These students displayed a combination of concern and optimism for energy use in China. Although our research explores how this nation's next generation views energy, the true fate of energy in China will only be known in the future.